let's start it off. Welcome everybody. Glad you could jump in. Right now I'm working on the next image in the Tellurion series, and what I'm going to do is I'll just walk you through some of the steps. Again, I've kind of pre-baked a few of these, and then I'll build this up to the point where I'm starting to add the diffuse color to things. So for where I was at, let's see. So here we have the thumbnail. And yeah, let's move this over. Here we go. Oh, start drawing all over it. Lag. All right. So we have the thumbnail. Broad strokes, you can kind of hopefully generally get the view of what's going on. This is pretty rough, and it's mostly just thinking about getting the story across with as few elements as possible. And as many elements as are called for, and arranging them, and kind of, so I'm thinking about the story and the composition, and that's largely what's going into the thumbnail stage. So knowing that this is going to be a little bit more on the complex side, what I wanted to do was build up a model. And so that model, I was in SketchUp and used a few pre-existing models that I actually knew I very purposefully wanted to reuse. So I put them into this rough arrangement. Really, this is just because it's ellipses and spheres, and I just want to make sure it feels believably solid enough. This just really helps to keep the more complex perspective issues kind of in line. So what I did was I literally just here, I'll go through the process a little bit. Literally just overlaid this on top of the sketch, and I found kind of roughly where I wanted to place it. Now I will jump up a layer to my pre-baked version. So here is the more rough sketch layer. This is kind of there's the thumbnail, and then I would call this the sketch layer. And this is kind of going in, trying to make a few more concrete decisions, still keeping it really fast and loose. But you can see that the model is literally just thrown right in there and kind of sketched over. And so it's performing the same task as the sketch. So at this point, I felt pretty comfortable. I kind of had a rough pose for the figures, and I had some kind of that basic sense of value and the depth that I wanted to create. So at that point, I would just work up the next layer, which for the purposes of this discussion, I called the pencil layer, just to make sure that they were distinct. So let me hop up to that. So here is the pencil layer. And at this point, this is starting to make a few more grounded decisions. This is really kind of like laying the groundwork for the inking stage. So everything that I am going to ink is at least given some shape indication, and yeah, it's just getting that extra bit prepared. So all that said, let me double check to see underneath here. How are we doing? Okay. So, well, what the heck? Let's just leave the colors on there. So here is, I was doing a little bit of extra work last night, the night before. And so I was able to bring it up to the inked stage. So you can see the line pass. Let me zoom in a little bit for you here. So the ink lines have been laid down. Pretty happy with it generally. There's probably, every now and then I'll have to go back down into this layer and add detail where it's appropriate, but for my purposes now, for coloring, I'm feeling pretty awesome. So right now, I am going to start laying in my flats. So we're up to that point where this can be kind of like again, it's like a meditative process. It's purely just execution. So if anyone's shown up with questions they wanted to ask, let me know. Let's see. Oh, already. Do you hand draw the geometric shapes in the backgrounds for the buildings, or are there tools or shortcuts you use to do them? Mostly handmade. Although spheres are, you kind of have to fight SketchUp. It just takes a while. It's tedious. So you can actually just, in SketchUp, they have a 3D warehouse. And if you know the shape you're looking for, you can just look for it. And there's like a whole bunch of people who have submitted spheres and dodecahedrons and all sorts of great stuff like that. So that can be kind of a solid shorthand. What I'm going to do now is I'm just opening up my my paper dolls. They're really just glorified palettes, and this is just how I try to maintain consistency. Every image I start off with the diffuse colors, and so if I keep the diffuse colors consistent, then no matter what I do to the lighting, either in color or value, the colors do remain consistent from image to image. Like they're always kind of recognizable. So they'll kind of technically remain the same in a dark blue environment or a bright yellow environment or whatever you want to throw at it. Let's see. My paper dolls are getting bigger. Actually, you know what? I will just cancel that because I have them loaded up in here. Oh, no, there they are. Okay. So here are my paper dolls. Like I said, they're glorified color swatches, just to keep everything safe. But what I've tried to do as well, just fun to show, would be they've evolved over time, and I've kind of preserved the layers, so I can actually like walk back through time if I go through the layers and sort of show some of the changes that the characters have gone through at various points, all the way back to the beginning. So it started with that one, way back when, over a year ago now, and now we're here. So I took those and I copied them into here. Let me open up this layer. Where are they? There they are. Okay. All right. So I'm just literally using the eyedropper just to sample from the characters, and that just helps me kind of keep track of what goes where. These little color figures are kind of my oh, it totally is a nostalgia trip every time I go back. It's my like in film they have someone whose job is just continuity. So right now these paper dolls are kind of just doing that job. I can try to remember. I don't know where I picked that up. I think looking at the Incredibles art book, and it was kind of neat. That might be it. You realize how much of the character's preserved even when you simplify it. But yeah, it just helps to remember, like, okay, wait, which side is this on again? Which side is this on again? Because as the characters change, you know, I want to obviously remain as consistent as possible. Since I think in this story, costume is kind of doing a little bit more heavy lifting than it may usually do. Oh, and thank you, paper doll, because I just realized I was missing something. Let's see. How much of the story... Oh, first of all, thank you. I love the series so much. How much of the story did you have written before you started drawing the series? I have it all outlined. So I know where it's going, but I purposely kept it a little bit loose so that as we go, I can kind of shift and move and kind of follow the odd whim here and there. Yeah, please, no, steal it. Steal that. That's why I'm talking about it. So cool to see your original work and ideas. Thanks. We all know your professional work, but this is always a treat to see on my Instagram feed. Thanks. I'm glad to hear it. It's fun to be able to share this, and I don't know, it like in concept art, you work on a project for several years and it doesn't see the light of day for a very long time. So it is kind of nice to have some form of interaction going, I guess, like just to be able to put stuff out there and get some feedback and see how people are responding. And I don't know, just to feel like I'm still, honestly, just feel like you're still around. It's kind of nice. Yeah, the paper dolls have been really great just for that consistency. I mean, it's kind of like similar to, knowing that these characters are obviously going to be repeated time and time and time again. Similar with like the models, I'll build a SketchUp model if I know that a location is going to be reused time and time and time again. I will say, like, for example, I built the most complex model I've built so far has been for the boat, and that's just because I know, roughly speaking, how many shots that it would take up. So that one was a lot more detailed. Whereas like some of these, I know they'll maybe be in one or two. Whereas like if it's just a one-off, I usually won't actually build a model. I'll just doesn't quite feel as necessary. How long was the concept phase of Tellurion before I started illustrating final pieces? Okay, actually, it's great having Reagan here because he can probably attest to this because he's known me artistically for most of my working life. Tellurion has been in the concept phase for probably 15 years, if not more, maybe 20 years. It's funny. It's like, it's a huge labor of love. And it's also massively self-indulgent. Yeah, that's right. About 12 years. It's finally doing something with the motifs that I love. And so I've been drawing this kind of thing for so long. And part of the process of building up to start was actually doing a deep dive through old sketchbooks and kind of just pulling stuff out that I was like, oh yeah, that was cool. I should use this. Yeah, so it's been a long time coming. Also, apart from color swatches, they should be useful as a design and conceptualization tool. Yes, well, and that's a big part of it too. I'm working on. Well, actually, now that it's been announced, I can probably talk about it. I've been invited to speak at this art festival in Poland, and so I'm part of one of the subjects that I'm toying with talking about in more detail is visual soundtrack, and the paper dolls factor into that hugely. I talked about it a little bit if you watch the Laser Pirate image. If you watch the video for that, it's just the idea of using shape and color in a very intentional way to kind of guide the viewer's emotions and focus. And so like with the paper dolls, honestly, I kind of know that if a design's not working here, it's not really working. I like the idea of 3D models. If you've read John Brubaker's work, he has beautiful and complex pages, and he does the same thing. If a vehicle or object has a lot going on and will be drawn over and over, he makes a 3D model in Blender. I think it really helps and can add a lot to comics. Yeah, I mean, I think from concept art, when you're making images in the heat of production, like I really, there's no such thing as cheating. There's just getting the image done and getting the idea across. As long as the story's being told, like, we're good. I'm so not used to this streaming thing. I just figured I would put some music on, and Riven felt like the natural choice for me. Hopefully it's innocent enough that YouTube doesn't mind, or Twitch, or whatever. If there's a whole bunch of holes in it, future viewers, I'm sorry. We tried. If they work well in that simplified form, they should work well in the detailed drawing, right? Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like if, honestly, because so much of this is like, I'm trying to tell story through visuals. If you can't look at them and kind of tell what's going on or what they've been through or even just general things about them, then it doesn't matter how much detail you add. It's not gonna go anywhere. So I think they've got their colors. Just because I'm trying to be a stickler, I'm just gonna add a couple lines. Nah, don't really fit. Nah, that should do it. Just enough. Don't hear music, but that's not a problem. Okay. Well, yeah. I mean, I guess I tried to keep it low so it wasn't. Let me see. Oh, there we go. How's that? It looks like it flips between either being too loud or too soft, but I don't know. And it's just my favorite thinking music, the Riven soundtrack. So let's see. We've got their colors. So now, yeah, it's kind of I think with streaming there's that sort of, or with any of these videos being made, there's that humming and hawing over whether or not you kind of leave it to the individual to put their own music over top, or try to play something just to keep people from falling asleep. Although I guess the Riven soundtrack is not exactly going to help stop that. I used to just put this on and lie down and just do all my big thinking with it. How big are these canvases that you work on usually? My usual ratio for these, my standard ratio is 300 dpi. And I'm at a 16:9 ratio, but I've doubled it, so it's 18:32. So they're nice and big. This is 100%. So more than enough to get like enough detail on these farther away shots, and then when you're doing a close-up shot, it really gives you a lot of room for detail. Plus, I'm trying to stay really consistent with the brush sizes that I'm using now. I think maybe the first few I was a little bit more slapdash with it. I just kind of do whatever. But now I'm trying to keep. I'm trying to do almost all the inking with like my triangle brush set to like 20 pixels wide. And I figure if I remain at least somewhat consistent with it, then that will be good. All right, so we've got some moss, kind of overgrown stone. And rather than go back and kind of pick some of the other diffuse colors, I am going to just try to find, right now I'm just thinking of like broadly the diffuse colors of the things in the image. So I'm going to just do, let's see, I kind of want it to feel a bit, idyllic, and like they found something special here. So I am going to keep all of these. What I'm doing is that this will all be kind of overgrown, jungly kind of stuff, but I am going to get most of my color variation out of the layers of like atmosphere and lighting and all that sort of stuff. How do you find energy at the end of the day? I took a shower and it woke me up. Okay, works well at the panel. Good, okay. Yeah, I'm thinking, as I'm looking at it now, I did the inking pass last night. I think just to make sure that's reading, I'm probably going to do a little bit of like oversized cracking and maybe some moss growing on stuff a little bit more obviously. In fact, before I really get into the coloring, this might be a good time to go through that. So oh yeah, I just earlier this afternoon did an interview, a podcast thing on Twitch with some awesome guys. It was Comics Coast to Coast, and they were asking a bunch of Tellurion questions too. And I actually need to figure out how to post or link or whatever, somehow get those videos or share them on my Twitch or something. I'm not sure. Yeah, we'll figure out. Yeah, the inking. It's so meditative, and I think like drawing it is awesome and fun, but there is something uniquely immersive and kind of like, this might sound weird, but like world buildy when it comes to the inking layer, when you're really making these decisions and trying to think like, what would you actually see, or what would this location actually have in it, or when you're trying to kind of like populate the space. And I'm not, more and more, I think some of the earlier Tellurion shots may have been more precise. I feel like I'm starting to get either either more confident or more flippant. I don't know. We'll see. Is it possible to save your live streams on Twitch for watching later? That I'm still learning about. In the off chance that it's not, this one I'm going to actually record and try to upload to my YouTube channel. Yeah, just to make sure it's preserved somehow. Full disclosure, last night while I was plugging away at this, I figured like maybe I'd set a few things up on Twitch, and then it kind of just ended up turning into an impromptu stream. Didn't actually record that one though, and I thought that that I had set Twitch to record it, but it turns out that doesn't work or didn't work. I don't know. We'll see. Oh, this one's being recorded, and I think this one I'm trying to be a little bit more intentional about, so there's that. With the checks, yeah, we'll see. I mean, exactly. Thank you. Nabulum was a big help there. So yeah, this, let's see. Oh, again, I have to keep catching myself. As I've explained, for anyone who's tuned in before and they heard that, like, I'm trying to avoid talking too much about like the content of the images, so that they can stand up on their own visual storytelling style. So every now and then I have to stop myself from referring to something or using a character name or something like that. Cool, looks like it's recording. That's great. Shows there's one video now. I didn't earlier today. Well, perfect. There we go. We're figuring this out. Was it one of you that sent the kind of like the master's course in Twitch streaming, that like 5-hour long intensive? I maybe got like about 2 hours into that, figured out a few things, figured out this microphone had to be like right here. Perfect. Okay, well, thanks again. And actually, just for the fun of it, it's fun doing these home things. I'm just going to turn my camera over a little bit and show you that my microphone is actually strapped to my old retractable painting easel. Here, let me get us back here. A little more. Okay, cool. All right. Now I kind of am. I'll just talk through what I'm thinking here. I don't want the cracks to be too consistent, like too Jackson Pollocked, like just evenly distributed until it almost forms a pattern. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a few areas of more busyness. Random is an interesting thing to me. There's what we think of as random, and then there's like real random, and like it's like what our brains, our pattern finding brains, when they think random, it's almost like they think of like a Jackson Pollock painting of like chaos, but this kind of even, almost like static, whereas like true random is flipping a coin and getting tails 35 times in a row. It's imbalance. That's my impression of it anyway. All right. Okay, I feel a little better about that. And I'm just going to outline a few moss patterns. I gotta say too, like I'm so thankful that we live in a post Mike Mignola era, because looking at the work that he can do, it's so liberating. I mean, he's so damn good, but part of it is, you can just tell there's like that economy that he just so clearly knows what's important and what's worth drawing and what's not worth spending, not worth the calories to articulate. And it's just, I really admire that. I think, that's a skill that he makes look easy because he's fought for it pretty damn hard. But yeah, so it just sometimes in where I'm blocking shapes out, I try to tell myself to relax and just like, I just did Mignola Master Studies whenever I'm feeling stuck with my work. Yeah, good call. All right. Okay, I think I can move forward with that. Anything in the background that really needs it? Maybe one big one. I'm going to just actually break this one. Oh, am I? Oh. I'm on the wrong layer. Thought you escaped. So yeah, it's fun. It's like the no shame in that back and forth where you just think you're ready to color, then nope, oh, back. Okay, all right, okay. I think now I can move forward a little bit. I'm just gonna hide that sketch layer. So I'm keeping my sketches on a higher up layer just so that I can like drop them down on top of the image just to see if I'm losing my way. Each layer I kind of think has some information to offer, and that I'm kind of trying to stay true. I'm not like abandoning them. I'm trying to stay true to the spirit of what came before. Like there's something in the thumbnail that I looked at the time and said, yep, okay, that's the one. And there's something in this sketch that's working for me, and something in the pencils. So the final, I'm kind of thinking of it as I'm trying to aggregate all of them. somehow. Whether that actually happens or not, we'll see. That's part of the reason I've kind of started working this way too, is I kind of like the surprise. I don't like to have an image totally figured out, I guess. I don't know, it just feels like more enjoyable to sort of like, you know, you have an intention, but eventually whatever comes out is yeah, you can kind of enjoy it too. So I'm going to take this color from the arm. Let's see. How many times would you say if you've rewritten Tellurion or scrap parts of the story you'd spend a good amount of time on? That's a good question. It's been... the outline hasn't changed. Like, I know all the major beats, and those have remained consistent. But there have been entire little... I don't know what you'd call them. Mini adventures or detours or things like that I've decided to scrap. And in some cases, what I've done is I've planned out, like, actually what happens the most is that I'll plan out like 5 images, and then I'll realize that I can actually say the same thing if I combine them into 2 images. So there's been a lot of that, a lot of like compression, because each image I'm kind of wanting to see how much I can say. So I'd say yeah, that's when where more of the transformation happens. That's easier. I was gonna have to go in and paint all those. Okay, I'm just gonna put that on a separate layer. Just patch up a few holes here. And cut a few things out. But yeah, one of the things that I've become a firm believer in over the course of like all the video games I've worked on, is that there's really no such thing as a perfect idea. It's just about executing it. Like, honestly, we live in a world where Ninja Turtles was the thing that, like, I honestly kind of think that pick an idea and a team that's willing to work hard on it or a person who's willing to work hard on it can probably make something pretty great. And it just about doesn't matter what it is. I really believe that. And so, like with Tellurion, part of it is that, you know, I'm trying to stay pretty committed to the idea that I decided on a story. I picked an outline that it's a story I believe in and that I want to tell. That it's right up my alley. It's the kind of thing that I want to say. But it's also, I picked it and now I need to stick with it. Like, even if I have some brilliant idea and brilliant. Even if I have some idea that I think is like, it's great. This is gonna be the next thing. I'm gonna, oh man, wouldn't that have been awesome? I'm already saving it and just putting it away, and just being able to say, if that doesn't fit with the story, like, I mean, some ideas are like, I've actually changed some of the major markers, sort of where they happen and how they happen, and Even what's happening now happened later and then earlier at different points. So it's okay to shift that kind of stuff around, but yeah, there are some ideas that honestly just don't fit this, and so it's easy to just kind of say, all right, well, next one. Have I shown my outline to others? Very, very few. I think my outline looks like the ramblings of a crazy person, because it is mostly stick figures and symbols, and it looks like when Charlie wrote the Nightman song and handed out the sheet music. That's the Tellurion outline. But no, I've shared it with a few people, a few trusted, like some family members and a couple artists that I trust. But just trying to keep it pretty close to the chest. I mean, honestly, I it's not like I'm doing anything revolutionary. I'm not, like I said, I mean, I think the different thing about, one of the major different things about Tellurion might just be that it's silent. I don't think it's a unique story by any stretch of the imagination. That's not my intent. I just like the setting, and I like telling this kind of stories, and I'm hoping other people do too. So pretty simple. Just doing lots and lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of drawings. Yeah, anytime I have sat down to like write, to actually type stuff out, it inevitably breaks down into doodles in the margins to try to articulate these concepts. It's bad. Just double checking. How are my levels? I'm not accidentally blasting Riven music and mumbling. Okay. Well, that works. I'm a little spooked by the copyright claim business at this stage, so I'm going to kind of just slowly dip my toe in. Nope, there will be no text. This is being done. Tellurion will live or die on the visuals alone. Oh, why do I number them the way that I do? Well, I didn't want to name them because pretty early on I was thinking that even that would intrude too much. So I wanted to keep them purely just numbered. But then the actual naming convention with like 04102, my original plan or my original thought was to do it similar, almost identical to how I arranged my hero. I was actually originally going to do little insert panels where just like not a full widescreen, but like just a little like insert shots for reactions or focused. But pretty early, like as by probably about the third or fourth image, I started to realize that I didn't actually want, like, I kind of started to think, why cut away to an insert if that could just be framed in the image? Because then it's a better exercise in trying to use the composition to its full advantage. And then it kind of feels like if it's really consistent, it would be easier to kind of immerse yourself in it. So to copy my hero, originally I was thinking I would have like, if I printed it, I would do it like 3 shots per page. But I'm kind of changing my mind on that. At this point, too late to change the naming convention. I'm just going to stick with it, whatever. I'm not too bothered by it. I think now if I just straight up numbered them, I'm at like, this is 122, something like that. It's 41 times 3 almost. But yeah, I'm thinking now that the format might be better if I publish it to just do 1 frame, 1 shot per page. And the reason I'm contemplating that, I'll probably need to print some out and do a few tests just to see. But I like the idea that the viewer, I want almost like to build the habit of every image sit with for a minute and absorb whatever you can, because you kind of don't know how far time's going to jump on the next page, or you know what's going to be relevant, what's not, what details are going to be carried forward and what aren't. So just for the sake of how I imagine it would be best read, I'm thinking that kind of arrangement. So yeah, I don't know. A couple times I've thought about like maybe just going in now while it's still even a little bit. It's not even early. It's like a year in, but like renaming everything on every site, and it just no, not going to do that. There's just no way. That time is past. So are other people drawing it home too? I was checking out some other Twitches at work while I painted. Tried doing it while I was making my documents, but too distracting. Yeah, I figured. Sweet. Yep. I would find, personally, I would find it impossible to just sit and watch something like this. Like, I would need to keep this in the background, and oh man, it just go nuts. One thing I was thinking though, you know what? Maybe I'll just throw this out there and someone can tell me, oh yeah, that's totally a thing. Occasionally it feels like this would be more fun if you're doing it together with more people. Like talking, I mean. Like if it was a handful of artists all working on stuff, and while they painted, they could all talk. Because I mean, it's great. I really like to hear your questions and your thoughts and all that sort of stuff. And so keep them coming, please. But it almost does seem like it's only part of a hangout. Yeah. Yeah, I can't just sit and watch stuff 90% of the time now anymore, unless it's a deeply involved movie or something. No, me neither. The place I work at is down for remodel, but when I get started, when I start getting money again, I want to get a pen tablet. What kind do I use? I'm using a Cintiq, 13-inch Cintiq. Yeah, I'm in Discord where people draw together. Yeah, see, that sounds like a fun idea. Do a multi-stream, or a single stream with Discord chatting with you. Man, so much to learn. I gotta try that. Because it just feels like that would be a more CapCut with Discord, is it? Google Hangouts with some buds and then paint. Yeah, I mean, exactly. I can tell you a little story. Actually, no, I won't tell that story. Yeah, Google Hangout, that kind of thing. Being able to just get into it. I know, I'm sorry. It just wasn't... Well, okay, I'll just tell it just for the sake of it. It's just thinking that, yeah, like along the lines of working freelance, being lonely, like around the time that my second child was born, you know, having your kids, like it's amazing, but it can be a very isolating time because you're so focused and you're pouring so much energy, especially in those early days, into it. And a few of my, I obviously, like, some friendships start to atrophy a little bit. You start really missing people. And I didn't even really realize it, but I started gravitating more and more towards videos and things that were like YouTube channels that I didn't notice it right away, but that were really kind of friends hanging out. So like Red Letter Media, I've always been a fan of. But I started watching like Filthy Frank and iDubbbz and Max Mofo hanging out, just like being lunatics. And it just like, even just watching the behind the scenes things where they were all hanging out and just like goofing off with each other. And I realized, like, dang it, I am actually just like, this is buddy methadone. Run by Tyler Edlin. It's an open Discord. People share what they're making and get help from one another. That's awesome. Oh, that's cool. Yeah, one of the things that was asked in the interview was we kind of started talking about, like, what do you think about ArtStation versus some of the older, kind of the way things used to be, like where it was the forums and stuff like that. It's a good idea for you to have your own server of Discord in the future. Okay. But yeah, where it's like, there used to be the art forums like Saigen or Concept Art or Eatpoo or others, and people just threw their work out there and they shared, and it's cool. I actually did see there's one Discord, and maybe it is the same one, and oh, cool. Oh, that's neat. I'll have to check that out. And it's incredible to have that atmosphere, to be able to just constantly be putting work forward and having it critiqued and having people talk about it and talk about what can be improved. That was like my second school while I was in art school. Was just go to school and come home and check out the comments on the forums from the latest piece, or see what Craig Mullins was talking about, that kind of thing. All right, we've got some moss, a little more. This stage can be a little on the tedious side, but I always feel like it's worth just plotting it through. It's like there's this moment that comes later that to me always feels like celebratory, and that's when I've got all the diffuse colors in, I've got my shadow layers masked out, so I've got the lighting in place, and then there's the just the balancing act. It's trying to shift them all to make sure that the image actually works, because it's not really until then that it actually comes together, and that's like the last couple percent. Yeah, well, ArtStation, exactly. I mean, ArtStation is great. I really like it, but it is, it serves a purpose, and that's to aggregate, to display work. It's a portfolio site, and I know, well, even on this interview, they were saying that DeviantArt had or still has the box to check to say, I would like to request critique on this. Don't know if it's as simple as adding something like that to ArtStation. Probably not, but yeah, I don't know. It's cool if Discord can kind of fill that gap. I mean, there definitely is a gap. At the same time, though, I am glad that artists are getting paid for their knowledge, like seeing like schoolism and that kind of stuff, and like they're doing it's awesome. Yeah, the art challenges are great there. If I know in Ipu or the flight forums I'm still in contact with. Totally. Do you think I can get a link to that Discord? I was joking with my wife that these teenagers are helping me learn how to do the new internet. Let's see here. I don't know if you guys are teenagers. I don't know. I know a few of you aren't. Hmm. 29. All right, fine. Anyone who knows how to use Twitch well is a teenager, as far as I'm concerned. Nice. Okay, so there's some real teenagers. There you go. It's funny too. Like I was at the schoolism in Calgary when they came by there, and it was amazing to actually finally meet Craig Mullins in person. And that was something he said too, because he, being able to do the paint overs and the speed paintings and all that sort of stuff, it was very much like a season in life. And now, it's in a world where you can be paid to do it, and you should be paid to do it. I think there is. It's almost like it needs that that community that is kind of all equally in the Hunger Games, I guess. Like, because I know that was a big thing. It was a lot of people who were just like, I don't know what I'm going to do. I just know that I love this. And there seem to be a lot of other people that love this. Question: what is the advantage of using the brush tool to fill in an area versus selecting lasso tool and filling with the paint bucket? I guess it varies. To me, it's probably just precision. It's just there are some things that, since I have the lines, I might as well just do it. I've been also trying to, when I know that I'm gonna color, like I'm inking knowing that I'm coloring later. So in a lot of cases, I have prepared the way for myself, I guess, and closed my edges, or closed my loops, so I can get a good magic wand fill. Keyboard. Oh yeah, I haven't actually made it here yet, but I learned how to make a Be Right Back screen. I just need to actually set that up. I don't need to be right back right now, but feeling pretty proud of that. And I saw that, and this is going to be for like advanced class at some point, but that you can actually simultaneously cast to Twitch and YouTube. Which, that just seems like madness, but worth looking into for future ones, I guess. Restream.io, okay. Maybe the next one. Sweet. Whoa. All right. Serious business time. Hey Matt, are you actively thinking of making the architecture colors similar to your character's clothing? Am I? No. No, I wasn't. That's a good question though. I didn't actually notice that. Could be subconscious. Could be just that I really like these colors. You can pick whichever one makes me sound smarter. Let's see. Between you and No Bradley, I'd be alright with either of you being my life narrator. Listened to a talk you gave on visual storytelling the other day, and it was really nice to hear some things reaffirmed and have some new things brought to attention. Well, thank you very much, Friend Owl Design. That is really encouraging. If you mean the egghead talk, that was one that I was really thrilled to have the opportunity to give, and really humbled by the response that it got. Like, yeah, it's I was talking about that earlier today, and just that it felt really good to have the opportunity to pass on something of the lessons I've learned over the last decade or so of doing this. It's like you suddenly realize, oh my goodness, time actually passed. And if I could go back in time and tell my young self not to do any of the dumb stuff, what would I be saying? Okay, now I'm just kind of backing up to examine it for balance. See how it's feeling. Now, I need to account for something that I have forgotten to add. So I'm going to do the egregious Bob Ross thing. I'm going to just take a big brush and I'm going to start marking stuff down. I can't let myself forget to do this. Which means I might need to do a little bit of redrawing and adding some stuff in. Okay. Just have to make sure there's some indication there. Well, yeah, where's the milk going to come from? I need milk. Let's take a look. Yep, alright, that'll do. Midground. Okay. Now I'm just going to use those as sketch layers, and I'm going to ink on top. Yeah. Blah. Relax, Photoshop. Relax. There we go. When you're talking about how much the cost to pay or whatever versus money made off of the models or concepts created, my dishwater almost overflowed the sink because I just paused and was like, no way. That's yeah. It's amazing when you really think about it. It was my art director who first brought that to my attention, that it was an insane amount of profit versus time paid to the artist. It's amazing. I mean, when it comes to like, is concept art worth it even? Which is something, you can occasionally tend to despair or feel kind of undervalued, but the investment in concept art is it's incredible, the return on it, because you can throw it away on paper, and you can throw out 100 drawings, and you're left with something quality in the end, or at least you have the opportunity. So being able to even just like carry yourself with that assurance, I guess. Just knowing that, like, who you are, what a benefit you actually do represent to the team. I mean, not in a prideful way, but in that sense of like, hey, like I'm here at this table for a reason. I'm here to kick ass and save you money. I've said before that in a lot of ways, and this can be said for many disciplines, so it's not like exclusive to us, but concept artists, their first job is really to be like a professional thinker. You have to like listen to the needs of the team, and like your job is to it might sound cheesy, but I like the Tyrion Lannister quote from Game of Thrones. I just thought that was like perfectly summed up concept art. It's like, that's what I do. I drink and I know things. Your job is to study and know and learn all sorts of things about the world. It's almost like just your job is to be interested in the world and to be able to articulate that visually, so that when your team comes to you with a problem, you can start knitting together solutions out of the material of the world, I guess. That sounds wannabe lofty, I guess. That maybe that's too far. I'm not sure what the wording on that would be, but what are hot tips for getting your brain going when working on concepts? Pinterest, art books. Yeah, those work. Doing what I'm doing lately, and I've been finding actually really helps, is actually just and it's funny that this is in the context of, I was just talking about how much I don't like writing or how little confidence I have. But even just like, I mean like really simple writing, like what I like to do now is try to write out all of the relevant information that I think I'm going to need. Such a little thing, but it actually does wonders for when you go in, because by almost like passing it to a different part of your brain, it like engages differently. I don't know how the brain science would work on that, or if it even is brain science. But writing it out, it almost makes it more obvious and more clear. Like you kind of say, and I figured that one out, or that one really finally actually clicked for me when I realized, when we realized how we wanted to do critiques at work in order to make them actually useful. Because so often in review meetings, after you've been in enough of them, it starts to turn into like, cool, okay, that's cool, yep, neat. Whereas like to get a really good critique, you can't just put your image up and have people respond to it, which is, I mean, it's like the ArtStation model. You need to actually like articulate, this is what I was trying to do. Did I do it? And then you can actually say and add like some really meaningful feedback. So anytime we were looking at an image and we would say, okay, what's the intention here? And they'd say, okay, well, it's this character and this is what they're about and this is what I have to work with and these are the restrictions. Then we could start making some real awesome improvements to it. And so just doing that in the reverse, doing it early on and being able to say, like, okay, before I even start, what am I going to explain to people about this character or this prop or this location or whatever it is? I mean, that's honestly, like, even with Tellurion, for some of the side characters and stuff, I'd actually write down what my intention was for the character, and that would help. It's almost like when you once you do that, you can picture them already. Like you can, as you're writing it down, it's like, okay, I know how to turn that into a visual. Okay, got those waterfalls. Do the background ones before I forget. Practicing the same method, breaking down what I want to design to the 3 words that explain what I'm trying to do. I think that's a really good way to do it. And actually, I've been doing the same. That it's like, if you can pick 3 words that act almost like your anchors, and make sure that whatever you're drawing can always be described by those 3 words, then you're in good standing. Find mood playlists very helpful. Yep, Spotify is just packed with all the moods I may listen to. Then with the design bullets, I'm a little faster making the ideas coming out, for sure. Yeah, that music really helps. That process of writing down really helps before I just doodle shapes. Yeah, it's like what I would call like rolling the aesthetic wheel. Like you just the wheel of aesthetics. You just roll it and it's triangles. Yeah, like there's not really intention there. Speaking of making money for what you do, you could set up a place folks can give you a tip. Yeah, I don't know. That feels like deep end of the pool stuff for me. I mostly just need to figure out what the heck streaming is. I mean, I'm doing it and it's fun. This is kind of a neat way to make art, but yeah, there's a lot to learn. A lot to learn. It's funny. Part of my research has just been like trying to figure out the culture of streaming. Oh well, thanks. I'm just really glad to be able to help. I've said before I had a handful of artists at various times actually answer questions or emails that I had when I was coming up, and it meant a lot to me. So yeah, it just felt like, I don't know, kind of have to pay it forward, otherwise it would be a disservice. Oh, that one's open. Doing great. Then again, if you need anything related to the culture and communities, ask away. Yeah, I'm at that point where I don't even know what I don't know. So I don't know how to ask intelligent questions yet. But thank you. That's good. I feel like I was able to get things up and running just enough that it works. Not fancy, but it works. Yeah, Sam, it's pretty great to have that interaction element that you don't really get from interviews or even a speaking event. Yeah, it's true. Yeah, that's it. This is like being able to just sit at a side table for a little bit. I think your stream is going awesome. One of the best things a host can do is heavily interact with their audience. Your answers and conversation are refreshing. Okay, well, it's good. Dry White Snowflake, you're trying to figure out streaming too. Yeah, it's like... I think that's partly where I'm thinking, having like the Discord thing where it's like a bunch of artists actually just hanging out and working on their stuff, but they can still talk, and even if it resorts to conversations about what did you think of the Venom trailer or whatever, it's like it's it's like that natural thing. I don't have any strong feelings about the Venom trailer, just to nip that one in the bud. Discord is the best partner to Twitch, hands down. Okay, well, I'll have to look into that. I do have Discord. It's probably too late now to turn that on. I'd have to set that. I will look into that. I'll take some time. It's just this constant hazard as I'm this close in of forgetting what the heck it is I'm actually trying to select. Okay. Expand. Okay, that's better. All right. Like Discord. It's like IRC but compatible with streaming and gaming and stuff. It's really just modular and easy to set up. Yeah. Oh, I didn't know there was a Venom trailer. So now who's the teenager? Fine, fair, you win. Let's see. Oh yeah, background. There we go. Okay. Just taking my time. Let's see. What else can I ask you guys? Hard to think of questions when you're coloring, so I admire that you guys are able to do it. Let's see. So with Tellurion, has this been in your mind for a long time, or did the story suddenly become a muse and spring out? The setting has been in my mind for a long time. The story is a couple years old, and that I wanted to do something. I wanted to tell the story, but the my first pass at it was very different tonally. I posted in my last video of the first try at the first panel of well, it wouldn't have even been called Tellurion. That's very much a setting thing. I just realized that I was going too grim. There's too much visual despair in it. It was just gray and muted, and it was very marshy and muddy, and I couldn't picture doing that for years. And I kept thinking, like, okay, well, I just need to choke that down for a couple of years, and then eventually I'll do something with this setting. And all of a sudden it clicked, like, why not just tell that story in this setting? And I was so excited. It was like the eureka moment, like, I can just do this. I can just do the thing I want right now. I can do both. I can do two things that I want to do, and been doing it ever since. So I was saying earlier in the stream, actually, that, like, some of the setting is old. Like, I've been wanting to do stuff like this for a long time. Like, most of my drawing life, I've been drawing this kind of stuff for a long time. And so it kind of, in some ways, it almost feels like something I have to put to bed in a way. Like, who knows, I might just keep doing stuff in this kind of setting for the rest of my personal career, and there you go, if I can find a good reason to do it, or if I'm compelled to. But it also feels like I've been doing this kind of stuff for so long that I need to do something with it in order to be done with it, if I'm ever to be done with it. Yeah, exactly. Have I seen Beksinski's work? That one is grim and despair at its peak. Yeah, that's a dictionary definition of despair. But beautiful. Beautiful despair. But horrible. But beautiful. Matt, I struggle doing paintings without thinking in lines. You're so great at both. Would you have any advice for someone who naturally thinks in line, wanting to also paint? Ooh, good question. Oh, I missed one. Let me get that. Oh, it's wonderful to see you streaming. Your work really inspires me during school. My old professor, Feng Zhu, hey, would often reference you during his lecture. Really? Feng? Oh, man. That's... Oh, man. That's... I don't know what to say about that. That's great that Feng would know who I was. He's like an icon. That's awesome. Thank you for telling me. As far as painting in lines, I like what Samantha Youssef in Montreal. She said that I don't draw line, I draw form. I just use line. And I think keeping that in mind, like with Tellurion, the aesthetic that I'm going for is very much like I want line to lead. So line is the only place I'm using 100% black. I never fill with black. So that line is always in the same. It's something. It's effectively just what I love about Mobius, where it's like his comic work is that like the line is doing all the heavy lifting because it's delineating shape and it's also indicating volume, and then color can just be sort of an afterthought. It enhances it for sure, but it's not necessary. And so, I mean, that's kind of what I'm trying to go for here. I don't know if that actually answers it. Like in the case of Tellurion, it's definitely leading with line. In like, let's say the ArtStation challenge images that I made, those are more painterly, but like they were all constructed in line and then painted over. The line shows through in some more than others. So let me know if that actually answers it. I second BG's question. Okay, we'll see if I actually did it. Painting is a huge pain for me, so I just focus on inks, so my colors require less work. Well, yeah, there you go. I mean, maybe that's what Mobius was doing too. Let's see. I think I actually might almost be done the diffuse. Holy cow! I'm just gonna add some green to the arm plants, and then I think we can move on to start mucking with value, or mucking with light and shadow. Huge fan of Calvin and Hobbes, and Watterson was amazing with his ink. Oh man. Yeah, Watterson. There's just... I was looking through that. One of my daughters got into Calvin and Hobbes. We were reading it together. First, when you actually read it with a child, you don't realize how cynical it really was. But it's also just staggering, some of the efficiency that, and like the elegance that his inks had. It's like it reminds me of it made me think of John Singer Sargent, if I'm remembering the order of that right, the painter, where it's just like these super fast, efficient strokes that say so much. And it feels like Watterson kind of had a similar effect with his, especially when he got really like brushy, like dry brushy with his inks. Kind of answers it in the way you reference form, shape, and volume. I also appreciate how you mention your painterly stuff is still constructed with line in mind initially. Yeah, because it's all just, like I said, it's I mentioned a little while ago, I realized too with this streaming thing, it's not going to be long before I'm really repeating myself. But there are some things that bear repeating. I'm going to write a name down here. Write it down if you Chin Yi Chang, character designer on Disney. Mulan specifically was what I was thinking. He gave this amazing talk. It's like an hour, or it's like an hour and a half, or maybe even 2 hours. Oh, see ya. Have a good one. Yeah, thanks for joining us. He gave an hour talk or more about design and character design and all that stuff. And he talked a lot about... he has a section in that talk about the hierarchy of design, and in it he puts shape at the top, and that really struck me, and it really resonated with me. And so I've kind of mentally always put shape at the very top of the hierarchy of importance. And that's why, like, I mean, one of the reasons I've explained to some people before that, like, I'm a concept artist, so it's kind of weird that I do so much line heavy stuff. But what I'm really effectively drawing is blueprints, because I'm delineating shape. And as long as the shape works, then most of the heavy lifting is done. After that, you can get into value, and then you can get into color, and then you can get into texture, and it's all supportive. But if it doesn't work at shape, it doesn't work. And so line, I find, is the fastest way to get there. Ever since I was about 6 or 7, I used to read my older brother's Calvin and Hobbes books all the time. To this day, I blame them for my vocabulary and sarcastic humor. Yeah, it's like a generation got hit by that wave. A fact may be helpful soon. Yeah, it's true. Maybe this could be a bit more personal question, but just out of curiosity, did having kids affect your art in any way? Have they inspired your work in any way? Oh, yeah. Yeah, big time. Big time. I would, more than anything else, I think, they've adjusted it. It's partly been so much fun just to sit down, especially when they were even younger, and like just the joy of mark making. And they're just delighted that these crayons and markers and pencil crayons are actually like making marks on paper. So, that stage was super fun. As it gets more representational, it's a blast to see their interpretations of things. Like, went to the aquarium once, and to see the drawing of the whole family standing in front of the jellyfish tank and all the little smiling jellyfish. Like, it's just, man, it just gets to you. My office, like behind me, I put up Tellurion images on this wall. This used to be beside me, but because I knew I was streaming, I kind of flipped my desk. On the, what I would call the main wall, it's all just my kids' stuff. It's like there's way more of their stuff than anything else. But I had this. I think I still need to think about it a little bit more to articulate. Yeah, I think I'll need to think about it a little bit more to really articulate it. I hope you understand. There are some things that I'm actually excited to share and talk about, but I also feel like I need to let them stew until I can really speak to them. But I think a part of it too, honestly, is that like you realize, oh no, like I mean, this is amazing, but I am responsible for whether these little humans eat or not. And so, tedious bullshit does not bother you nearly as much as it once did. That drawing's got to get done, son. It's there's not more like, does it really work? I don't know if I am fully behind this one yet. It's like, no, those drawings got to come out. Make them. Really gets your priorities in order. I find if you let it, it can make you far less delicate. Let's see. Looking at this now, I realize there's something I want to do. Let's see if I can articulate it. This is all just the diffuse, so this is all just flat. We're looking at just flat, straight up flat color here. What I would like to do now is just, this arm has that like kind of greeny color to it. I'm going to create depth, just like in the sketch here. I'm going to try to create depth through value and all that. But I want to indicate that the colors up front are the same colors in the back. And so I feel like I need to take some of this like pale stone color and bring it into the arm. So I'm going to just reverse it a little bit. Oh yes, I understand that. I can only imagine how many things they can inspire. Yeah, it's amazing. Okay, I'm just gonna. Perhaps an odd question, but is there any particular area of art that is or has been tricky for you to grasp? Does all of the above count? No, I suppose so. I mean, there's always something that you need to, or that you can learn. There's always something you can figure out next. Like there are things that I prefer doing and things that I prefer not to do if possible. Like we have some really talented artists that are really good at, say, environments, and I actually really love doing it. And it's like not my favorite thing. I can totally jump in, but it's, you know, if there's another option, I'd probably rather do that. But one thing I've been trying to do just as a personal exercise is to whenever I'm drawing and I can tell that I'm getting that urge to fake something or to avoid something, that's when I know it's time to study it. And when it's time, like I've found something that really is gonna, okay, you know, it's like, okay, I'm kind of faking the hip bones, or I know I'm avoiding the shoulder blades or something like that. So I know it's time to go look it up. I had a talk with Don Carson. He came to speak at my community college, and he was telling us how just sitting down and drawing ideas and getting new shapes and covering every angle of a thing you're working on and getting to know it very well, that's how he worked on the Disney parks. And I want to get to that point of being able to concept something like that. Just fill sheets if I wanted to of that design. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, absolutely. Well, and you know, I was actually recently at Disneyland, and took the family, and it was amazing. We were there for a day, and you see it in action. Man alive, I had never actually been, and so seeing it all in person was kind of the way I was trying to describe it to my wife. I was saying it's like kind of terrifying, or like awe-inspiring, magnificent. It's because you realize when you really see how much is behind it, how much effort is behind it, the amount of money poured into this thing, and like, you know, you got the car, you know, the there's the rides and all that, but then there's like, you know, the parking lot with a rotation of buses going around the clock, dropping people off and picking them up, and everyone walking around picking up food, just everything. That's just massive endeavor. And then like surrounded by hotels that only exist because of this one location, employing, I couldn't even imagine how many people, and all this, like it's staggering. But the amazing thing is there's all that work, and none of it would exist if the stories weren't amazing. Like, because of good storytelling, you can have a place like that. And it just like, it suddenly, the weight of storytelling really fell on me when I was there. But yeah, I think being able to, being able to, it sounds like Don Carson, he got it. He got the story. He got what they were trying to create. And having seen Disneyland, I feel like I kind of understand that a little in context a little bit more. Okay, I think I have now got all the diffuse colors in. Oh, well, thanks for joining us. Have a good night. All right, I felt similar looking at all the families from all around the world there. Yeah, it's amazing. People coming from everywhere, literally everywhere, just to be close to this thing. Light beam, there we go. Okay, so now I'm going to jump into lighting. So the layer that has the most useful lighting information is my sketch layer. And I want it to be mostly lit by these sunbeams coming in and reflecting off of the ruin. So it'll be a little dim, but here, I'll slide it over. I'm going to take a minute to think. I mean, I established in the previous image the kind of like warm lighting because I wanted it reflecting off of this location. So I know I'm doing that, and then we'll do a cool shadow. I'm just going to dive in. We'll start seeing how it feels. So what I'm going to do a... Let's see, are the curves showing up in there? Just give it a second to load. I'm just double checking that everything's kind of like what's appearing and what's not on this actual live stream kind of following along, but it does not look like it. So I'm just going to add it to OBS or see if I can. Oh, there we go. Okay. So, curves. All right. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to think about the whole image, and I'm just going to think about like what kind of lighting condition. I'm just basically almost going to just try to imagine what the overall shadows are gonna feel like. And I typically don't like to go much darker than about the halfway mark. Like once you get down into here, it kind of feels like it's too dark, where you're just getting into almost just pure silhouette. And I always want to kind of keep that line at like front and center. So I'm just gonna fiddle with this until I feel like I've got shadow color that I can live with. So that's just the RGB, and then I'm going to switch into the blue channel. I'm going to raise up the blues overall, and just because I know I'm going to go pretty warm with this light, I'm going to pull the reds out to get a little bit more of that green. So it's a little low contrast. I want a little bit of that, but okay. And it really too, this is like, I know it's going to change. Like this is guaranteed to change, but it's like I'm trying to take a reasonable shot in the dark of what I think this is going to be. What I'm going to do just for the, and this is part of again what I'm trying to do is maintain color consistency, like, and so in an effort to create consistency, I'm just duplicating those layers a whole bunch, and I'm gonna put one in each layer. That's gonna be their shadow layer, and then I'm gonna mask them out. So a little bit of work, but worth it. Lines, okay. Now I'm gonna take, let's say here with him and her layer. I'll zoom in on them so you can kind of see it a little bit more clearly. Oh, thanks. Can't say how hype I am to watch this. All right, well, pay attention. It's going to get crazy. No, it's really not. So I'm going to select the figures. I'll just invert that. Oop. Put that under the lines. There we go. Okay, so I have my shadow layer for them. Now I'm just going to go down and do the same thing for everybody else, for everything else. There's the arm. And what I'll do for clarity's sake is I'm gonna color the shadow layers. Let's say violet. So I'm just gonna add some violet to each one just to keep track, because then we're gonna come in and do the light layer too. All right, the clouds are gonna get it too. I'll adjust that later. I'm thinking for clouds, it always feels like I have to kick a little bit more blue into them just to get it to feel right. One of those cases where I'd rather go for what feels right than what's accurate. Now I'm avoiding the water. I'm not sure exactly how I want to treat it yet, but because I imagine reflections will play into it, I'm going to wait until I've rendered up a little bit more before I really address a solution there. I have actually honestly found water to be a personal challenge on this project. It's been good. It's like man, it's a tricky thing. I have to try this method sometime. Seems very useful. Yeah, well, and as I go along, hopefully what I can demonstrate, as I've tried to demonstrate in other videos too, is that it's a very non-destructive way to work. Let's see. Oh, it's thinking. It's thinking. Oh no. Oh. Dang it. Okay. What I did. It's funny, this didn't show up. I should have totally checked that layer. I am not happy that this waterfall is actually right on the very edge of this layer. It's going to look weird if it's a transition. So I'm just going to expand this layer a little bit more. All right. It's not so bad. No one will ever know, except anyone who ever watches this stream or YouTube video. Okay, let's see. No, not sealed off yet. Right. Oh yeah, of course. All right. No, you gotta get out of there. Yeah, you better not tell. Okay. Moment of truth. Let's see. Where can we find the YouTube video? I will put it up when it's all done. I will put it up on my YouTube channel, which is just Matt Rhodes Art on YouTube. You can just search that. Similar, same as my channel name, but just on YouTube. So what I'm thinking I'm going to do is this time around, instead of like, I don't have like a big strong sunlight coming in, but what I do have is this beam that's going to be kind of shooting in. So I'm going to just figure that out, and I'm going to use that to light the entire area. So most of the light is going to be just reflected. So here's the shape of the beam, and in pencils this is kind of what I've got. So, or in the sketch layer. So I think the final values are going to be a little different than that. I'm actually here. I'll just adjust the curves a little bit more, and we'll see if it's probably going to feel a little bit more like that. Yeah, that should do it. Looks like my curve thing there in OBS has basically died, so I'm just going to get rid of that. Let's see. Okay. So that's probably closer to the truth. Now, did I darken it at all already? I'm going to get it all goldy. See, I'm going to mask this out. So how I want to mask it is that a big beam is shining down into this, I'll use my arrow here. That's not an arrow, that's a gradient. Don't do that. Okay. So have it shining down into here, and the hottest light is going to be inside this circle. So it's going to be kind of casting up like that. Off for the night. Well, thanks for joining us. Cool. Well, I'll be, like I said, I'll be putting the YouTube video of this up. And it sounds like this is one is actually recording, so you could just watch it on stream later, or on Twitch. So yeah, the light's going to be coming down and really bouncing up on here, and probably a little bit of underlighting on a few of these structures, but I don't think it's going to travel much further than that, because I do still want to keep a bit of that like quiet flavor to it. Let's see. And then this one will go behind the tower. Same with this one. Okay. All right. So start blocking it out. Just going to use some masks to paint that beam in. Oh, think about it. Think about it. Quiet flavor is a great way to explain it. Yeah, I just want it to seem like a very... Still riding that line between how much to describe, but quiet. This beam is looking a little mathematical. So I'm just going to break it up with a hand-drawn line. Just mask it out softly. Just try to get a slightly more natural feel. And then it's also still a little bit hard. I'm going to soften it up a little bit more. Oh, no. No, can't do it while the masks are still in play. Disable layer mask. Let's see. There we go. Now, put it back on. There we go. Okay, that works. Okay, now to tediously paint out or mask out this beam. And I'm not worried about any bounce lights yet. This is purely just what this central beam is doing. That the bounce lights will be another layer. So I was just describing this process to an artist. He was asking kind of about some technique questions, and he was a 3D artist. He said, "Huh, sounds like you're just lighting a scene." And I realized that he was right. That this method of working, it's almost like it. I realized how much it's been born out of working with video game artists, and like scene lighting, and it's less so now. But in graphics engine, like in engines previous, if you wanted a bounce light, you had to place it yourself. So you put in a spotlight, and if you wanted to create the illusion of reflection, you had to put in a secondary light somewhere. And so there was like a real artistry to the lighting. I think there's still certain elements of that now, and it's very similar to like what a film lighting specialist will do, like putting up reflectors and backlights and all these different things. But I find it just helps because effectively that's all a painter's doing. Like they're just, that when it comes to the lighting anyways, like they're just lighting a scene. And so this approach I've just found kind of like, I guess it does sort of mimic that 3D level art construction process of just placing lights and thinking about reflections and how far would that go. And yeah, thank goodness for ray tracing indeed. Oh, it's nice to get some of that stuff for, I always hesitate to say free. Okay, I'm gonna create a layer for the beam. Because there's probably going to be some more shenanigans with that. And I'll probably want to go back and forth on intensity with it just to see. So I'm going to leave that like that for now. If anything, that's just going to serve as my guide. Now, I am going to create one light layer just for this mid zone. So I'm not going to go through the whole curve process with everything. I'm just going to lighten this layer a bit. Just going to lighten it and pull up the reds a little. And maybe pull some of the blues out so we get a yellow, more yellow kind of flavor to it. Okay. So there's my light layer. Now, let's see. My lighting for media class really helped me wrap my head around light. Am I good at light? No, I'm still quite not good at it, but I opened up my eyes to being able to tackle it. Well, it's the kind of thing, it's been kind of cool. Like I've been working, I've spent the last while working with this animator. He's going to be our lead animator, Paul Dutton. And he has a background in animation, like worked on, he was like, I believe like lead on Triplets of Belleville and The Illusionist. And what he's kind of opened our eyes to is just that, like, really, it's just about being intentional. Like, there's rules you can learn, and there's all sorts of guidelines and stuff like that, but seems like at the end of the day, one of the most important elements is that you're just intentional about what you're doing. Like, just trying not to be arbitrary. Like, don't just pick it because, but think of a reason. Because even if people would disagree with your reason, it creates this consistency in it, and it just shows through that, like, doing something with intention. It's like acting with confidence. I like your brush. Is it custom? Not good with brushes in Photoshop. Well, thankfully, this is a very unspecial brush. This is a effectively no different than an out-of-the-box, like, Photoshop round brush set to size pen pressure. So it just gets smaller the later it just gets bigger the harder I push. And my other brush is that with opacity turned on as well. I just have found that I like this shape just because it's not quite a chisel brush, but it's not quite a straight up circular Photoshop brush. So it creates a little bit more interest in the lines that you get, quote unquote, for free. And I like that, but it's really, like, super simple. I'm not I don't really dig into the brushes very much in Photoshop. So here I'm just trying to think of all the light that's going to be bouncing off of this floor, and just make some decisions about where it's going to get cut off, where the shadows stop. And this is knowing that I'll come back to it. What I can do after this, it's almost like just I'm assuming that the bounce light is a massive intensity, and I'm just kind of spreading it out at like 100%, and then I can come in and start reducing it to the point that feels right. So it'll be, again, it's like a balancing act. It's just trying to find this is almost just like setting out my parameters, like how far could light go, and then I'll pull it back to get the right feel for how much do I think this reflecting sunlight would actually go, because it would still follow the same path. It's just a matter of whether it would fall off before it reached a certain distance or not. I'm just kind of painting that path. So even here, like I want to make sure that it's kind of just getting the shape of the light right here. So on this pillar, I want to pull the shadows in a little bit on top to kind of show that the light's coming from the bottom. It's getting a little more cut off up there. See if that's working. Oh, Photoshop's starting to chug. Come on, buddy. So yeah, I'm actually kind of excited. This is there's this art conference out in Poland. That I was invited to speak at, and it turned out that it worked for me to be able to go. So it's called, let me look it up. Occasionally I keep forgetting the actual title, so forgive me. I am very, very excited to go to Poland. Oh, there we go. Okay. Promised Land Art Festival. Let's see here. All right. Well, thanks for joining us. I know it's funny with this this timing, being able to really only able to do this in the evenings, and knowing how the overall timelines work for everybody, it's ends up being pretty late for a select few. So I think I have a feeling that as I continue that the morning after recordings are going to tend to be a little bit more useful. I have a feeling in the end this tower is going to get kind of masked out to the point where it barely have any light on it at all, but for now, let's see. Just thinking about how it would spread out. stick with that for now. What did I indicate in my sketch? Okay. Indicates some light still hitting just the rim here. This ends up being a fair bit of noodling. Just trying to find shapes that read well and articulate the right stuff as far as getting the right read. So if I were a light photon, sometimes I honestly you have to say that's the area. With masks, though, that makes it easier to fix later, right? Much. Yeah, a lot. And thankfully, too, then I can, as long as I've got the masks in play, I can still be, I can be making adjustments the whole time. I can adjust the intensity, like I can just sort of, diffuse it a little bit. So it ends up being really versatile. So that... not many of them are going to actually bounce up and out through the top. Take this up higher. So the circle ends here. And just a few of them are going to reach up here. So it's actually casting a pretty impressive shadow. So really, that's just going to put a little bit of light here and some here, but it's going to have a fade off. And then here, if it's 3D, it'll actually maybe even have cut off on the ball too. But if it's a little bit further back, that'll be the fall off there. Okay. So just trying to think a little bit more about how this light is actually getting around. Now I'm going to leave that slightly visible, and that will guide my mask choices. We'll see if it actually works. I don't know. We'll see if it looks a little bit more convincing. Well, sadly, I must call it a night. All right. Well, thank you very much for joining us. And yeah, I'll definitely be trying to do more in the future. So stop by whenever. And like I said, I'll be putting the video up. So. Hmm. Yeah. What current artists' comics are you a big fan of? Any would highly recommend to others for any reason? Um, I really have not been following comics, so I don't know what's going on in the world of comics right now. I'm almost totally out of it. Um, I would love to be more in it, but I got to a point where I was like kind of only into uh, Hellboy, and nothing else could really scratch that itch. Um, but artists, man, it's always so tough. There's so many great, great artists out there. Yeah, well, it's true. You, it's similar. Like I don't play games anymore, really, unless it's like explicitly something that's going to be beneficial research wise or something, or I know it's going to be part of the conversations in the office, so I kind of have to dive in. It's funny, it's like you get to a point where you almost end up listening more, especially in the age of YouTube, to people talking about these things, but not necessarily consuming them yourself. It's a weird time. I was talking to my brother about an idea. Um, Not sure if we'll probably won't actually ever. Not sure if we'll ever actually do it, but the idea of just starting a discussion series about um, concept art, entertainment art, production art, whatever you want to call it, comics, just art that, and just from a review sense, just what's been done really well, what maybe could be adjusted. Just shouting, calling out things that are really working or things that really aren't. Um, Feels like everybody's got one or two things that, if they were given the chance to redesign or whatever else like that they'd jump at it. Um, Actually, one of the examples I gave last night, I feel like I have to give the same caveat that I really admire Guillermo del Toro and I like his stuff, and I think he does a great job. And um, but I was talking about Pan's Labyrinth and how I feel like the creatures in Pan's Labyrinth suffered from coolness. That they were beautiful creature designs that showed off his love for movie monsters in a really definite way. That, like, in almost like self-indulgent, and like in a way that's a lot of fun. But the story is that you're kind of in and out of the mind of the imagination of a little Spanish girl. So if the creature designs looked like awesome creatures designed by some of Hollywood's best creature designers. Like, how much more effective might it have been if those creatures looked like things that would terrify a little Spanish girl, like out of fairy tales, or things from her world. So they looked constructed from her experience. Such a nitpick. It's such a ridiculous little nitpick, I know, but it would just be. I just still think it would be interesting to try a pass at what would those look like. What would it look like to design creatures from that perspective? Okay. This lighting scenario, it's funny. It's like it's looking a little weird, but lighting does that. I've been finding so often that, like, if you were to take a photo or something and you were to faithfully recreate the lighting scenario in paint, it would look weird. So here I'm trying to I'm giving it a circular gradient, and I'm just trying out what it looks like if we just create a nice natural fall off. Probably not like Bing Bong from Inside Out. Yeah, but yeah, not like that. But that's that's a case where they actually thought it out. I mean, that's where they. I mean, I'm not saying that's like Guillermo del Toro didn't think it out, but like, it's true. Kids are at that age; they're all about the animals. And cotton candy, like, he's literally made out of the stuff that little girls that age are completely bonkers for. And so in that sense, it's a very true design. So, like, I mean, just imagine, hypothetically, oh, good. I'm glad to think that the shapes of the light on the spheres give it a unique and believable presence. I'm glad. That's good. Thinking of, let's see, like Pan's Labyrinth will take one of the creatures. Well, just imagine, like, swap out any one of those creatures for something that looked like it was like a hand stitched, like a doll that was stitched by her grandma. Still creepy, still a creature design, still neat, but it would have like a visual language that was within her sphere. Can you talk a bit about how you'll end up adjusting the bounce light strength? I'm really just it'll be a mix. I'm gonna do whatever it takes to get it working. But what that's gonna be is anything like the layer opacity. I'll use gradients. I might adjust the curves, like adjust the brightness of the actual colors in the layer. At a certain point, it's just going to be playing it by ear and just trying whatever will work. Brush tool. Okay. I'm just going to try out some reflections. Just a soft, cool reflection, just to make sure that the material is reading. Again, what I have been trying to do wherever possible is, instead of just picking a color totally arbitrarily, is either pick something local or duplicate the layer and adjust it, just so that there's some kind of consistency between the elements in the world. So in this case, the reflective color that I started with is the same color as the clouds. I'm probably still going to adjust it and move it around, but I'm not really too concerned with specificity there, or that level of specificity. That's just a fun word to say. Are you planning on streaming Thursdays? Yeah, I think just for the sake of creating, like I'm painting many days of the week, but I think just for the sake of creating some consistency with the streaming, I'll try to focus it on Thursdays. Yeah, and usually around this time too. It's after the kids are in bed and things are kind of settled. I want to do more life drawing and fast, loose sketches to practice my art, but there aren't any classes like that available near me. Does anyone know of any similar online resources I could maybe look at? Yes, I do. There's a YouTube channel called Croquis Cafe. Here, I'll write it down on screen for a second. I think it's this'll get you there, even if my spelling's wrong. Oh, missing some strokes. There we go. They do life drawing sessions, like just straight up filmed life drawing sessions that they review, that they put on YouTube, and so the model will hold a pose. Then they'll do like the minute, 2 minute, 5 minute pose. It's really great. I use them if I need to do like a mini session or something like that. Croquis Cafe, very American of you. Yeah, the Proco stuff is awesome. Even what Proco's put out for free in his anatomy section is like pretty incredible. It's Croquis. Let's see. Drawing bodies is something I want to improve on, but I don't want to see naked people. Well, I mean, you don't need to see genitals to draw the body, but I mean, most of it, for the most part, like honestly, like when I'm doing figures and stuff, so much of what I've been doing is laying down the skeleton, then laying down the musculature, then putting clothes on top of that. Like I'm literally, every time I draw characters, I'm building the characters. And the only way you can do that is when you know your anatomy and you know like what's there, what's in the layers. So I think it's fair to say to a certain extent, there's gonna be some naked people. Although I know that in case that is actually a big concern, there was a schoolism video by a Pixar artist. There was actually a very good set where the model was mostly like the models were mostly wearing like yoga gear, and I think they picked the outfits well. Like they had good lines on them to indicate form and all that kind of stuff. So I'm sure there are options out there. Yeah, pretty sure that was a schoolism life drawing session with a Pixar artist. Okay, I'm just gonna mask tops of these out a little bit. Okay, it's almost at the point now where I think I'm going to need to start separating the layers just to see what else needs to be. Just drawing with Alex Wu. Thank you. Yes, that's it. Going to the gym has been essential for keeping my anatomy from completely going to trash without access to a good life drawing studio. There you go. Use yourself. Reflection. I'm going to label these. Just labeling the layers has really helped too. Oh, well, thanks for coming out. Yeah, thanks for joining us. Labeling the layers, especially when it comes time to start balancing stuff out, it's just invaluable because you're going to just start. I'm just going to start bouncing around back and forth, a little more of this, a little less of this. So every chance I get, I want to label. Now I'm going to laser bang bang. Oh, that's the name. Aha, okay. I thought laser bang bang was the name of some life drawing thing. Okay. I'm going to just start creating some atmosphere in here because what I do still want to create this sense of depth. And I'm going to do that by creating kind of like a thicker, wet atmosphere. So I'm just going to take some layers. Yeah, Pinterest can be pretty good for that too. Plus, I mean, they have their guidelines, like some pretty strict guidelines. So if you're worried about content, like typically you're not going to find anything terribly egregious on Pinterest. Let's see. So I'm going to separate some of my planes. Now, I have made a nest for myself, a complicated nest that I now have to deal with. Or maybe I don't. Hooray! If I just think of the clouds and the midground as the same. All right. Do you always work up from the shadows? No, sometimes I'll go reverse. It just depends on what I think what's leading. Like there's in some of the brighter images, obviously, like where it's like very very bright. It's easier to paint the shadows in and kind of get a sense of how it's feeling. Like here, let me just pull up one of the particularly bright shots that I started light and painted the shadows in. Just hop online real quick. Sorry, and this is my way of like talking about it but not referring to anything too specific. I'll just put the image up. Yeah, it's I'll say it. It's a crutch, but such a comfy crutch. So well worn and padded. Let's see. So yeah, in this one where I wanted the sun to be pretty hot and bright, this one started very much with the sunlight, and then just was like kind of getting some little bits of shadow in there. I want it to feel like, you know, the sun's shining right on there. So we've got some haze. We've got our figures in the foreground. Now, this is where it's handy to have the sketch layer to kind of get a sense of what are we trying to do again? What's going on here? Just gotta think. Trying to avoid dead air, but I think I'm gonna make a new layer, and I'm gonna plop the foreground elements into it. Oh, and I'm gonna bring that light beam down to the midground. So that's back there. Oh yeah, let's set these to screen. So I'm going to set the haze layers to screen so that they kind of let a bit more through. And I'm still going to keep the clouds and the midground separate. I think that's worth it. But I'm going to just for the sake of really trying to get some separation here, foreground. And that's going to be them. And I'm going to create a mask in here. Oh, come on. I can do it. Okay. And so what I'll do with that is I'm just going to put in another curve layer. And this will let me adjust the values of my foreground. So, okay, so now I can darken those right up. I can make them look totally red, and perfect, done, ready to go. All right, thanks everybody. No, but it just helps to keep everything. If I need, I was just thinking like I kind of want to darken all of that stuff a little bit. Maybe add a bit more blue. Too much. Seriously, a bit, like a pixel of blue. Okay, so got some separation there. And then I think too, part of what was working in this sketch is getting this like fade down into the farther tunnel. So I think I'm just going to mask this in a circular gradient. Let's see how that feels. Not strong enough. Let's see what we can do here. Get some distinct fall off. Okay, cool. So now that kind of, again, it's, I think like one of the things that I really have come to believe is that it's not appropriate for every image, but that depth, like literal visual depth, actually does so much to literally invite people into your images. That if you can create that it actually literally does pull people in. Like there's this kind of gravity to it. Okay, so there's that. Okay. A little less. I think I want one on the clouds though. So I'm going to cut that out. Oh no. Remove that selection. Yep, I go the wrong way. That's lines. Hey. Oh, that's okay. I'm gonna put it up on YouTube. You have missed nothing. Sorry. Question: when working on projects like Dragon Age, I imagine there are a lot of reference material that gets used to figure out armor and costume designs. Is there any specific book or source that could be considered a must-check for fantasy medieval designs? I know Pinterest and web resources are good, but I wonder if there is any printed material that could be important to check. I know it's my. No, that's the music has stopped. That is just my computer. Maybe I should play the music again just to mask that out. If that was actually working. My computer's really fighting for it. I'll turn this back on. I can't, honestly, Lango, I can't think of an actual specific book. Yeah. Yeah, I can't think of anything specific. I know it's like we've kind of searched high and low for. I mean, I've been designing armor for so long that it kind of feels like hard to believe. Like I don't really believe that there are rules anymore. I mean, there are. There's a logic to it. It works. But yeah, I mean, the yeah, good question. Good question. I really don't know. I'd have to think about that. Wanted to add a separation, a visual separation between the towers and the clouds. So kind of masked out this haze here. Just gonna make sure it's blending out properly. Here, a lot of other artists recommend art of books from movies as good references. It can be good, but it's also like using I think using other concept art as a reference kind of feels like chewing up food that someone else has already chewed up. Like, I know at a certain point, you know, it's okay, like it works, but I think it might be, you know, I really admire like some of the artists that I've been able to work with, like Casper Konefel or Ramil Sangha, who they look at the problem and then they try to solve the problem in an interesting way. So it's like, okay, we're trying to design armor. Well, what are you protecting against? Who are you fighting? What sort of thing? And so by going back and asking earlier and earlier and earlier questions, you can think about it differently. So, you know, it's I always use it's a cheesy example, but, you know, I use the example of like if it comes to it, using like crab armor is probably a better solution given some crazy set of circumstances. And it's really a matter of like asking enough questions and so that you can kind of look farther for answers. Curry says, when you're starting a character concept, do you tend to draw the concepts roughly first and then pass those for feedback, or do you clean them up? We can be pretty fast and loose, because in the early stages we're just kind of trying to get the overall idea across. As long as it communicates the idea. Like I've just been looking at some that are they're actually really great. They're pretty much just like borderline like newspaper or magazine cutouts smashed together. Like it's photo bashing in the ugliest sense of the word, but it works. It gives you a sense of texture and story and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, a lot. You can get away with a lot in the early stages. Question: how do we landing first job? Does it come to us or do we go for them? It varies. It really honestly varies. It's I'll be like, honestly, I tell people in truth, like, there are a lot of people that I know who've like basically everyone I know has come at it in a different way. Some people were just straight up hired at a job fair, and some people were in a different job and they switched roles. Some people, like, it's I think it's always worth trying. It's always worth pursuing and fighting for whatever you want to do. Does that make sense? Like the old expression, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. How did I start off? Weirdly, I was at art school, third year. Bioware came down looking for some help on Jade Empire, because a few of the people working there had been through ACAD, and they saw I was kind of caught before I left by one of my teachers, and he said, bring whatever work you have to this room. So I did, and I handed it to some guy, and we talked about video games for a little bit. And then a couple weeks later, I got a call, and they said, do you want to be an art intern? I screamed my head off, and he said, yes, I would. So I started with them as an intern, and then I was an intern on Jade Empire, and then during that summer, Jade Empire ended and Mass Effect began, and so I started helping out on that. And so in my fourth year at art school, I was splitting my time between doing homework assignments and designing Mass Effect stuff. So it was dream come true. Something I'm so thankful for. I will always be thankful for that. Oh, thanks. I just I was just telling these guys I just did an interview. I'll try to find a way to link the video of it to Twitch. I was just talking about Tellurion like earlier this afternoon on this interview, and I kind of told that story too. So it's twice in one day for that story. But maybe it's just because I'm a dad. I'm speaking in cliches and quotes and all that sort of stuff now. But I think, you know, it's like that idea of that definition of luck that I really like, where it's luck is just opportunity, or hard work meeting opportunity. That's it. I love sci-fi, and Mass Effect really seems really cool. I'll have to play the series someday. Yeah, I like it. I'm a little biased, but I like it. It really was like the atmosphere of it, especially, I mean, all throughout it, but especially in the early days, like it was very much just a love letter to fantasy, or to sci-fi. I mean, that was just kind of how everybody felt about working on it. There was just so much that we all loved so dearly. It was just nice to try our hand at it. This glow is a little too distracting. I'm just going to bump it back a bit. I still want a bit of it. How has Twitch streaming been treating you thus far? Great to see you on here and interacting with folks. Thanks. Yeah, it's I've been enjoying it. I think it's been working. If anything, it's just been great to have some company while I'm plugging away. Like it's been working on these things for a while now, so it's kind of cool to just, I know, have some interaction. This is forcing me to articulate myself too. Something I am getting more practice with. Now, I think I'm going to add some shadow and light to these clouds. I'm going to get the light kind of interacting with the clouds a little bit. That is a haze layer. Blah. Okay. I'm going to warm that up. Twitch does take some, I mean, this whole streaming idea, though, just to add to that, it does take some getting used to. Like, it's definitely a weird thing. And there's obviously the technical aspect of it that, if you're not too familiar with, does have to switch up. Well, there's a change in course. Who's your favorite character in Lord of the Rings? Blam. Transition. Favorite character in Lord of the Rings. And why is it Aragorn? I mean, really, who beats Strider? Do we need practicing all subject matter, or need to focus on subject what we want to do? I think part of being, especially a concept artist, is being versatile and knowledgeable and a good researcher. So you don't need to know how to draw everything, but you need to know how to go and learn how to draw everything, if that makes sense. Like, I am not good at drawing cars at all, because I don't really care about cars. I care that they work when I drive them and that they don't hit me when I'm on the road. And that's basically it. So, but if the time comes, and it has, where it's time for me to, like, an image has to have a car in it or it's not going to work, I will go and do the research and study up and try to practice them enough that I can draw them with some confidence. And, you know, like, it's, everyone's fond of saying, like, drawing is not riding a bike. It goes away. Like, it's, you lose it if you're not practicing it. So there are things that I have drawn in the past that I don't think I draw very well now. And a great test case for that is, like, the fun game of, like, getting everyone to draw famous characters. Like, okay, draw Homer Simpson from memory without looking at reference, and you just see the hilarious things that people come up with. You know, we think we know them, but do we? It's like that with everything. You think you know it, but you're probably wrong. Your brain's probably sanded off all the corners just to save space. I don't know if that's how that works, but yeah, being able to be an enthusiastic researcher and to say, like, I can't draw that for you now, but give me a couple hours, I'll do some research and sketches and be good to go. I think, though, too, being able to have a solid handle on the fundamentals is what really matters. So being able to draw, like, anatomy and drapery and render some lighting and all that kind of stuff, I think that's overall far more important than being able to draw specific things. Okay, so I'm going to knock that back. I want to kind of give the vague indication that this light is kind of bouncing up from here onto the clouds. So I'm going to fade it out a bit. Oh, so it's 11:30. This image is definitely going to need some work, but I feel like came a long way from. We put in the diffuse, and now we've got some lighting information in there. We've got some bounce lighting. We've got some atmosphere building up. Can really get a glimpse of it. I think at this point, sleeping on it, I'm going to send this to myself, and I'm going to look at it first thing in the morning and see how it feels. It really helped. It's just going to take some separation from it, and I think that'll give me a chance to think about, okay, is this reading how I want it to read? What's imbalanced? Let's just do a quick, just for the sake of it, let's just do a flip test. Sleep schedule. Honestly, these days I just try to go to bed when I'm tired. Having kids really just, you don't get to have an interesting sleep schedule. You just do it when you can. They're good now, but let's see. Okay, I'm going to flip it back and forth a couple times. It doesn't hit me wrong. I am not upset by this. That's always a good feeling. However, already I'm realizing I'm probably going to want to bring this light onto the figures even more, because just for the sake of consistency, the previous shot, the reveal is they're pretty bright. They are pretty bright. So I think, we're looking at here. Let me pull this in. So I want to at least, even if I don't go that we can buy that they're not lit up that much in the next shot, but I want to at least do the due diligence to get some level of the bounce light affecting them and the sculpture. So that may be the next thing that I tackle. I think, yeah. So I'm going to bring this stream to a close. Thank you guys for following along on the progress. I'm going to upload this to YouTube. And very likely I will end up actually finishing this before the next stream. The next one will be, I'm going to shoot again for Thursday around the same time. So thanks again for following along. And I'm going to have to come up with a good outro for these things.